Hello, hello.
Yeah.
Hello, 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 check, 1, 2, 3, check. ，hello, hello, 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 hello. Hello, 1, 2, 3, check. Hello, hello. One, two, three, check. Hello. Hello, 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 hello. Hello. Hello, hello. Hello, 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 hello. Beautiful. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, 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 hello.
Offering mandala in requesting for the teachings. This is connected here. Yeah, found that. You can hear. Yep, okay, good. FM, can you hear? FM, yep, okay. Going for refuge and generating bodhicitta motive. The celestial spirits and canal shape and Indra and so forth who act on the Dharma, please come forth here to what the Buddha, to listen to what Buddha has told the souls of much peace and happiness, the languages of the celestials and the yakshas and the humans in the language of all sentient beings. I will explain the Dharma. And for the benefit of all mother sentient beings, equal to the extent of this body, must attain the highest goal, this precious, complete, perfect Buddhahood. For that purpose, I will here listen to the sublime teachings in this way as regards the motive and the behavior. Please do so as advised in the sublime teachings and the sublime teachings. The teachings of the true great pioneer teacher and the very heart nutrients of the great Bodhisattva Shantideva, for the fortunate person to be going to omniscient, which has the four greatnesses and the three distinct qualities, such a text which in order to show the firm origin of the teaching, the greatness of the teaching, in order to generate reverence to the teaching and way how to lead the sentient beings by the actual instruction. Now, the first three have been completed, and the fourth way to lead the disciple by the actual instruction. It has the name of the text, the explanation text, and the transition homage, and then the first three has been with regards to the actual text. There is the way of engaging into the explaining of the great way of teaching, always the first step is complete. And with regards to the second text, it is the entreaty to draw essence out of the leisure and intermittent way how to draw essence. And with regard to the second way to draw essence, it has two parts, the general explanation and the specific explanation. And with regard to the specific explanation, page 1 of the text 2, the thing on the benefit of the general meditating on of the enlightened mind. Second, how to train on the Bodhisattva practice after having generated the bodhicitta. The first part is to retain the bodhicitta which is completed, and then the second, how to train on the perfection practices. With regards to the how meditation on consciousness, on the morality and so forth, and to apply the mindfulness and introspection and explaining in brief, and the way to explain how to train on the four remaining perfections and how to give away one's body, belonging and so forth, of which the first two have been completed. Now we're with the third is the training on the four remaining perfections, way of training on the patient, way of training on diligence, way of training on the common and uncommon demonstration of common abiding, especially inside, and way to the nature of the situation. Always the first part have been completed. Here we are on the present point, how to train on the wisdom identity, or especially in page 49 of the second text. We are on this part, and the man training Sansiti of with the first part, explaining the text of the text. Chapter 8 has a three part, showing that those wanting to attain liberation need to generate wisdom realizing suchness. Second, the means of generating wisdom realizing suchness, that is the second subheading. And then the third, as such, instructing to strive at generating that wisdom. So there are these three parts of which the first is the showing that those wanting to attain liberation need to generate the wisdom realization, which has two parts, general meanings and branch meanings. Anyway, for entering into the Bodhisattva practices with this text, as mentioned earlier, with the outlines, there are 10 chapters. Of the 10 chapters, we have completed up to the chapter 8, and now we're on the 9th chapter on wisdom. We're at the beginning of that chapter 9, and in the things completed, the 8 chapters. The thing on the benefit of the generating mind and to retain the mind, and way to train on conscientiousness, the way to apply or training on the mindfulness introspection, then training on the four remaining perfection from the perfection patience so forth, which are the chapters that have been completed so far. of those. If you compare with the wisdom chapter, it is, though they were much clearer, much easier to understand, and much easier to practice and put into practice. You can put straight away into practice those chapters that have been completed, especially with regards to way to retain Bodhisattva mind and how to train on conscientiousness, how to train on mindfulness, introspection, and patience, diligence, and meditative concentration. All of them mostly what is regular in our regular life, in accordance to the regular lifestyle, what are the adverse things that would come about, how one should challenge and face with the conducive factors against them, and these what is practical to be put into practice that have been explained in those 8 chapters. Therefore, those who do study and practice on this Bodhisattvacarya-avatara text, then with each meaning of the verses, we are able to understand the meaning straight away. From that very day, from on that very cushion, you can put into your practice, apply into your practice, to your daily behavior. You can bring into your daily behavior. Most of the verses so far are of those kind. So therefore, with regards to the how to look at the shortcomings of the hatred and anger in order to practice patience, and how to apply the mind being stopped from distracting, how then to make the mind stay in meditative concentration, and how to give up on the mundane gathering and of the mind's conceptualizing. Whoever do this practice, you can do the practice in such a way, and in your life, what is not related, and in your regular practice and behavior, you can apply into them all of those parts. Therefore, those who do study on the present text, Bodhisattvacarya-avatara, the important thing you need to keep in mind is whatever you know of these verses, you can straight away put into practice. Even if you're not able to put into practice straight away, you should be able to have intention and to pray that in future I'll be able to put into practice those verses of the chapter 1 to 8 so far completed. So this would fulfill your purpose of having done studies and put effort at receiving the teachings. Otherwise, you would just say, "Oh, I've received the teachings, I've attained the commentary," but nothing is put into your mind stream or mental container. And with your daily lifestyle, if there's no change, no effect at all, then your listening to the teaching and doing study has not much meaningful field. And with regards to the exclusive Bodhisattvacarya-avatara, main instruction is through the equalizing, exchanging service with others, through that to train on bodhicitta, enlightened mind, through the the 7-point course in effect instruction, through that, through the 7-point course in effect, a way of training on bodhicitta, through that, of course, there would arise or be able to generate bodhicitta, that being so, but through bodhicitta, through that method, for that person, if that person do again the practice of equalizing, exchange of self with others, then the person's bodhicitta's power and force would become much more stronger. The main basis of bodhicitta is the great compassion. Gyuto Rinpoche, when applying the listing of the 7 cause and effect, has the great compassion as the main and the preceding mother recognition up to the loving kindness are the cause, and then the great compassion is listed as a result, and through that, or naturally, there would come about the special insight, the superior thinking bodhicitta. Normally, when we list the 7, we list the first 6 as the cause, and the great mind or enlargement bodhicitta as the result. But in both the extensive and short lamim, to Gyuto Rinpoche presenting compassion as the basis is through the mind, the compassion is not feeling unbearable about the suffering of sentient beings. So that very thought, not feeling unbearable about sentient beings suffering, is how much ever you have, that much you would have the interest in others' welfare. To that degree, you would have a stronger bodhicitta. So this would become one link to others. So focused on others' sufferings, to have the mind of compassion, to be very unbearable about others' suffering, to have that mind of compassion. One needs to have the changing of yourself, cherishing with that of the thought, cherishing others like yourself who is tormented by suffering. You feel unbearable with that. Similarly, you have to feel unbearable about all other sentient beings suffering, and through that, self-cherishing thought needs to be swapped or changed the sport with that of the thought cherishing others. So this is what is the way of thinking. It is the exclusive thinking here. It is the pivotal instruction here of this present text to think in those ways. So this very pivotal instruction by great Bodhisattva Shantideva has presented in Bodhisattvacarya-avatara as well as in Shiksha Samucha, compendium of training, what were taught by Buddha, and many other scattered sutras and so forth were put together by Shantideva in one text. Therefore, it is very convenient to put into practice and so forth. And in other texts, to exchanging self-cherishing with that of cherishing others, that is explained so much in other texts. But to be actually changing the attitude, this is very exclusive to the present text of Bodhisattvacarya-avatara. This is in order to bring special, unique experience on this training on the bodhicitta. I think there is a special significance with this method of exchanging or changing your attitude from the verse 139 onward up to some parts on that section. Therefore, when you meditate on bodhicitta, the most important thing is to increase your compassion's power. And if you, in order to have a strong compassion, firstly, you should have a very strong thought of renunciation. That is important. Therefore, with the three capable practitioners' part to go one after another, that we're training, that is the reason that there is a stages of training from small, intermediate, and great. And with thought of renunciation as with regards to the suffering, and with regards to the suffering of changeable pleasure, one is not only renounced of that, but also one feels renounced and repulsed by the suffering of third kind, the all-pervading conditioned suffering. To be repulsed by the suffering is also with the animals. To be repulsed by the thought, or to be repulsed by the suffering of changeable pleasure, is also present with the non-Buddhist practitioners. Now, with the third, the renunciation, to be repulsed by the third suffering of perversive. So this is very exclusive here. When the Buddha first teach turning the wheel of Dharma, said that the suffering should be understood as the suffering, and there is not anyone who does not understand the obvious suffering, the suffering with the suffering of the tangible pleasure. There could be some who don't recognize that, but mostly they don't recognize the third type of suffering, the conditioned pervasive suffering, as a suffering. So one should have very strong, unless you have a very strong fear with that third kind of suffering, there will not be a qualified renunciation generally in the mind. To be repulsed by the third type of suffering, if you do not have such a renunciation, then when you meditate on compassion towards others, then to be focused on the suffering of the sentient beings, third type of suffering, of the conditioned perverse suffering, that would be very difficult to be produced. As I mentioned many times in yesterday and before that, great compassion is, which is a compassion level equally to all sentient beings. Whoever sentient being not being included under the focus of the compassion, such is the compassion. So there's not any sentient being that is not under the focus of the great compassion. So when that compassion looks at, there are many sentient beings who do not have the suffering of the two kinds. So for them, the compassion to be focused, on the third of the suffering is what the compassion should be focused on to those sentient beings who only have the third type of suffering, such as beings in the form and formless realm. So firstly, in order to have a genuine renunciation, one should have renunciation as regards being repulsed by the third type of suffering of your own, when that is much more familiarized than those sentient beings who are not inclusive to the third type of suffering. The sentient beings below the stream enter, they all have the third type of suffering, the suffering of the suffering of condition, the racism. Therefore, great compassion naturally would focus on the suffering, all three types of sufferings of all sentient beings, and then with regards to the meditation on the equalizing exchange of self with others, as mentioned yesterday in grave, one needs to think on the shortcomings of the self-cherishing thought through many views, through many ways, and one needs to think on the benefit of cherishing others through many ways, and then the actual exchanging of self, cherishing without self, thought cherishing others. You should train in such a way where your mind is changed or inspired. If you're able to do so, then regularly you should not be parted from the thought of compassion to all sentient beings, to be focused on sentient beings suffering, and to have the universal responsibility of the superior thinking that I myself will do the task of removing sentient beings' sufferings. When Atisha came to Tibet, the great teacher Atisha came to Tibet, and with regards to the general instruction of training on Bodhisattva, and especially those instructions that have been listened from the teacher of the Golden Island, the way of exchange, training on equalizing, exchanging self with others of the great Kadamba teachers' tradition. So this. Then the Atisha wrote the name of the path, and to his disciple Tomtumba and others, to up to some successful disciples, the instruction of the 7-point cause and effect was given in public, but with regards to the instruction of equalizing and exchanging self with others, this instruction was kept as a hidden instruction and given only to a few disciples. Only after the teacher Chakawa, the instruction became widely given. Then as regards this, there are many parts with regards to these, that there are the arguments to be forsaken and so forth, and especially with regards to the practice of the way of doing, the practice of the giving and taking in the context of the equalizing and exchanging self with others, with the thought cherishing oneself and the thought cherishing others. These two to be stopped on their position. Not only that, but other sufferings are taken upon oneself, where how to do that and how to give your happiness to others. There's such instruction that is being advised with regard to that, whether it would actually happen or not, whether it is all just a visualization and belief. So on that, there would be question and doubt that would come about on that point. Whether things not be taken upon yourself, such a question, and your happiness not given to others. If the case, then with regards to giving, visualization of giving and taking are a mere visualization, a mere belief. In actuality, nothing takes place. If that is the case, then why there is such question and doubt that arise is because of the cause and causative presentation, which the karmic details are so hidden field of knowledge. Buddha has taught that the karma is definitely, one does not come across the result of karma one has not done, and the karma created does not go wasted. So with regards to this teaching by Buddha, within one person's mental continuum, the karmic deposit cannot be transferred to other person's mental continuum. That seems to be so. If there is a transference of karma to other, then the Bodhisattvas on the 10 directions and the Buddhas in 10 directions perfection. Their compassion is limitless, therefore they would be taking the sufferings of sentient beings, and that there would be no suffering for the sentient beings. But the Buddha himself has said, the able ones do not wash away the negativities and do not take them by their hand, nor by transferring Buddha's realization to others. So through 3 points, I have said decisively, the sufferings of the sentient beings cannot be washed away, nor can be taken by Buddha's hands, and the negativities are to be purified through one's declaration, and unless through that, if it was not purified, the karma doesn't go wasted and cannot be washed, and Buddha's realization cannot be transferred onto others. But the way Buddha leads others to liberation is by showing the you yourself is your protector. Who else would be your protector? So for us to attain liberation and omniscience is to be done through by yourself taking up the practices. Otherwise, from somewhere outside to be imported and to be borrowed, there's no such way of making progress on the path and attaining of the results. One do not come across the karma that one has not done, and karma created or done does not go wasted. So through this viewpoint, when you explain through that viewpoint of karma, all the karma that has been accumulated but that is not yet declined, if you do not purify, then that karma cannot go nullified. So this is what is being explained. If that is the case, then other sufferings to be taken upon yourself and your happiness to be given to others, how could that be actually be taken place? Of the past, many sublime teachers, when they did meditation on giving and taking, other sufferings have been taken upon their own self. There have been incidents, such incidents we do come across in their biographies in India too, not very long ago, about end of 19th century, beginning of 20th century. There were siddhas, the accomplished masters, who, when others were beaten with a stick, the pain was taken by that siddha on their own body. There have been such actual events that had occurred. How then we would ask, then generally, with regards to the practice of the generosity, or when you do the practice of giving and taking, mainly, it is the training of the thought of giving that is the focus to perfect in thought of giving. That is called the perfection of giving, perfection of generosity. It does not mean that the person or the beings whom to be given a generosity, if all their needs are fulfilled and there's no object to be given, that does not mean that the perfection of generosity is complete or it's measured in that way, but rather. But to be able to do generosity and to have the completion and perfection in one's place to give to others, this is the perfection of the generosity. Then in the earlier, so how would then one perfect in the perfection if there were many sentient beings still impoverished and so forth? We have come across this verse earlier in the beginning part of the text. And how could there be the perfection of generosity? Perfection of generosity does not mean the entire object of the generosity are fulfilled, but rather the person doing the generosity's mind of giving. When that mind of giving has been perfected and has been completed, that is called perfection of generosity. When that being so, then with regards to giving and taking practice, your own mind, the very ability to give, when you're perfected in that, whether the actual giving happens to others, happen or not, doesn't matter. If others are actually given the things and they receive, then the very intention from your part to be able to do so, along with the giving or during practice of giving and taking with the breathing out and breathing in. When you breathe out, all your body belonging and the roots of virtue are visualized being in that going out along with the outgoing breath in that sort of things each sentient beings want. And when you breathe in, all sentient beings unwanted suffering in the sort of various kinds of forms are visualize taking in opponents along with incoming breath. So this in the practice of tantric practice, when you do the emitting of the rays and during the two breaths and the absorbing of the light rays are done for the purpose of the merit and collection of the three great kinds of eons to be done in very short duration. Mostly they are being done through visualization and belief. So that being in actuality, whether they receive or not, that question doesn't become a big question. From your part, the willingness to give or not, that is the question. Should be, for example, with your head and the legs and hands, if you are able to give away by doing such generosity, these would definitely help others, that is undoubtful. But the Bodhisattva who is doing such giving, in that Bodhisattva's mind, the perfecting and completing of the thought of giving, that is the most important part. Kadamba Geshes, they used to advise, which perhaps was Geshe Kotowa or one of the congregations, I do not talk about the giving. I talk about the shortcomings of miserliness or grasping, that by doing generosity there are such and such benefit. I don't focus on that in my instruction. Rather, if you just hang on to your self-grasping mind, co-grasping mind, what are the shortcomings and drawbacks with that? This is what I focus on. There is such a incident mentioned of the past Kadamba teachers who have given such advice. Therefore, in the present text, Bodhisattvacarya-avatara, with regards to the visualization, nothing explicitly mentioned about the stages of visualization, but rather what is to be meditated upon are established to countless righteous reasons in the present text. Therefore, in the stages of training one's mind on the bodhicitta through especially the instruction of equalizing the self with others, and these are in the Lamrim Chen with others, there is advice of combining both instruction. These you need to import here, and then if you are someone who is training on the thought of visualizing, exchanging self with others, then you first train on equanimity, then you think about such chasing thought shortcoming through many ways, then you think about the benefit of thought chasing others through many ways, then you equalize with others, then you exchange self with others, then after that you do the visualization of giving and taking. So in this way you train, that is the stages or the manner how you train your mind on the bodhicitta, not your mind. So through such a way, so far what has been covered in the present text, Bodhisattvacarya-avatara's meanings of those chapters covered, that you should not just be forgetting about the verses and their meaning, that straight away each of the verses understand their meaning and to be able to apply to your practice. This I think is important. The patience, diligence, and concentration, whatever have been explained so far through, and the process of conscientiousness and the introspection, these really we in our daily lives way of doing things, there are very many things we can apply. So please read again and again those earlier chapters and be able to understand their meaning and what is explained in the present text. Bodhisattvacarya-avatara, even one verse meaning, if you apply in your lifestyle, when you are able to apply to your life, then really you have taken great meaning out of your life. This goes without saying. So what is to be started from today, the chapter on wisdom, it is in terms of the text, it's very profound and it's very vast. And especially in terms of the philosophy and viewpoint, and in the Prasangika Madhyamikas exclusive theories, what other philosophers and schools of thought put questions and how they are responded and so forth are shown in the chapters before. In chapter 9, they are mostly on the practice part of the doing things with the wisdom. It is like the view, the theory part, the refutation of others' mistaken ideas and presenting one's theory, and then forsaking the argument. These are all present, therefore, with all schools of tenets, especially the materialist, the realist, the Swatantika and the Vibhashika, their system and systems are repeated, and along by the Swatantika Madhyamikas, philosophies and views are refuted, and that being so, therefore those who have not done study on the major text to be straight away through the present chapter to be gaining a complete understanding would be very difficult, I think. Therefore, with the great or many text, the path of reasoning, and with regards to the general presentation of the tenet, if you do not have any background on these matters, then through the present chapter 9 itself of the Bodhisattvacarya-avatara to be understand the entire complete with all the branch meaning and so forth would be difficult, I think, for you to get an idea. And most of the verses I myself do not know well. There are many parts that I'm still doubtful about, and the doubts have not been cleared. Therefore, with the present chapter on the chapter on wisdom, with regards to the actual wording, the verses, word by word explanation will be briefly given, and apart from that, and the side explanation and the background explanation, I will try not to go into them. And in terms of the time, we have to complete this time the entire text. Therefore, perhaps this chapter is in size similar to the previous chapter on the meditative concentration. This chapter has many verses, whereas chapter 9, and perhaps with regards to general presentation, especially of the mind only, and the discussion that takes place in the present chapter, and likewise with the Buddha's teachings, how to differentiate between definitive and interpretive. If you are not familiar with those parts, then to be straight away through the present chapter to understanding, I think, would be difficult. Anyway, here as the explanatory commentary, to make it a complete explanatory commentary, each of the verses, the explanatory of the words, I will go without skipping. So mostly of that, with the Gyuto commentary, we will follow that, and the outlines anyway is going through that, and the commentary part would be mostly through that commentary. I'm thinking in such a way, generally, with Rinpoche himself, with regards to the Bodhisattvacarya-avatara, the text written, and it hasn't written any specific text, with Gyuto's commentary in text. In the all 10 chapters commentary are complete. In Rinpoche's collected teachings, there is a note on the 9th chapter which has been written. Gyuto, what Rinpoche has taught, Gyuto has put into note. All Rinpoche's teachings were kept as a reminder note, so that is in the Rinpoche's collected teachings, the notes on the chapter on wisdom and the chapter on the wisdom by Gyuto Dhamma. The wordings are almost same, except for a couple of words here and there. If the commentary was written first or the a note, written letter. Otherwise, in terms of the content, subject matter, and the wording, there's not much a difference. Both works of Gyatso. The one is which is known, it is in the Rinpoche teaching, the note on the cognition and the note on the wisdom chapter. These both are in the same entry in the collected teachings. So therefore, with regards to the explanation of the words, with the Gyatso commentary shall which is that is very clear. And generally, in the band with regard to the structure of the Bodhisattvacarya-avatara among the adept masters, and the bag has become a major point of in later years, based on the wisdom chapter, the argument under again text written. These are very deep and extensive. Therefore, what I mentioned earlier, with the written chapter applying to the outline, and then not to cover the verses, words, and so forth. We should go together. Then straight away when they post the verses, they would relate to the subject matter and so forth. Otherwise, with regards to the refuting of mind only and refuting of the materialists, and the section on establishing Buddha's teaching as the Great Vehicle as Buddha's teaching, otherwise this part would be very difficult to be straight away understood by most people who have not have background of studying to major texts. Now, with regards to Buddha's teachings, as it is mentioned in one text, it is like a huge mountain of sugar. With a huge mountain of sugar, if you take a small part, it still has the taste of sweetness. Therefore, even with the word meaning of the verses, there would be noble imprint implanted. There would be a possibility of your mind leading to some other virtuous things. Therefore, without going inside explanation, our mind might go by word meaning of the verses. Then the outline as before, page 49 of text 2. The explaining the text of the chapter, the first and the name of the chapter will come later. The explaining text of the chapter has 3 parts, showing that those wanting to attain liberation need to generate wisdom, realizing such as in the modern many Indian experts. They have written commentary on Bodhisattvacarya-avatara. What they have said is Nagarjuna and the disciple Aryadeva what has been explained in the Sanghika Madhyamika system. The argument and the discussion that have been put forward, there had been many, and also with regards to the and one of the main teacher also is Shantideva, whose time yes, last year we have gone through that, I think. Yeah, anyway, in around 7th century AD would be the time, but it is much later in terms of historical timing. Buddhapalita, Chandakirti, the Vidya Kokila, and the Bhaviveka others, and all the great teachers of the Swabhavika, Madhyamika, and Prasangika Madhyamika, after they have passed away, the exclusive theory of the Prasangika, whatever argument that had been put, and the response given, one of the main teachers who gave response after that was the great teacher Shantideva. This is what is mentioned, and here in the present chapter 9, there are many things related to those arguments brought by other tenors. Therefore, this chapter would be naturally very difficult to understand. It is natural that it is a difficult chapter to understand. Those who want to attain liberation, it is necessary to generate the wisdom, realizing such the very laying of the outline, top of the page 49, second text. Without realizing the meaning of such that there would be no attaining of liberation. The self-grasping, true grasping true existence is the afflictive abstraction, and to attain the Arahant state of the lower wisdom, one need to have the realization of emptiness. So these are being explained here. Therefore, in the laying of the outline, these things come about. The means of generating wisdom, realizing suchness, second and third part is as such instructing to strive at generating that wisdom. There are these three parts explained, of which the first part showing that those wanting to attain liberation need to generate the wisdom, realizing suchness. So this part again has two subparts. First is general meaning, second is the branch meanings. Then the general meaning is in, although there's no verses, but in the commentary, this is what is explained. What is explained in the Gyuto's commentary is the exclusive assertion of the Arjuna, even the Arahant of the hearers and the solid reason has to realize emptiness, and the grasping of true existence is the afflictive obscuration. These are being explained, and here also, although it's not mentioned in great detail, there is also the great commentary on Chandakirti's entry into middle Bhaja. This is what one needs to look into, the recommendation made in the present text. Therefore, with regard to the general meaning, that is what it is. Then with regards to the where it begins is the branch meanings. With regards to branch meanings, the actual wording is the verse number 1. All these branches were taught by the able ones for the purpose of wisdom, so those wanting sufferings to be eliminated should generate wisdom. This verse number 1. The 9th verse is the first verse of 9. Chapter 9, first verse. All these branches are taught by the able ones. This very chapter should show mainly the wisdom in the entity of the special insight. Therefore, wisdom is the focus subject matter of this verse. So whatever the branches that we are covered in the earlier chapter, these were taught by the Buddha for the purpose of wisdom. So through this way, the meaning of the words are like that. Now, as for that, with the commentary, the commentators, they have mainly differed in two different way of commenting. So in one, all these branches they refer to the chapter 8 of meditative concentration, how to accomplish the pointedness of the mind. The chapter on meditative concentration, although this is not explained in great detail out here, because the chapter 9 is about special insight, it should be preceded by the calm abiding. So here, these branches refers to the calm abiding, what is related with that, all those. And what is explained in the 8th chapter, the equalizing and exchanging self with others and training of mind, this is one way of explaining, there's one tradition of explaining that way. Then the other is all these branches that from the chapter 1 to chapter 8, what is explained, all of them So that means the entire way of training on the 6 perfections are explained for the purpose of wisdom. So there's that way of explaining the second way. All these branches were taught by the able one for the purpose of wisdom. If you look at the face of the wording of this verse number 1, what is in other chapters and the chapter that was just covered, the chapter 8, these were, there was some part where this had been taken out from the chapter 8 and explained, for example, for the 4th chapter on conscientiousness, and that has been at the very end of the retaining body, the mind, after so such a by the verse begin thus firmly retaining enlightened mind, so thus refers to the what has been mentioned in chapter 3. So it becomes like the link to the chapter 3. That is what it becomes. So likewise with chapter number 7, when you start the chapter on diligence, there's lines saying which is being patient. Thus, because this chapter on patience was just preceding, so just as was explained in the chapter on patience, one should at the same time to take the patience of accepting suffering and so forth, which are very like the diligence. And likewise with the chapter 8, when it was chapter 8, when it started, this line which says, so thus it says, thus having genuine diligence, based mind and single pointedness, so thus refers to the diligence. So each of these chapters with relation to the previous chapter, there's a link and there's a way of explaining that way. If you take those as an example, then here chapter 9, the first opening word, all these branches, all these should be is explained in the 8th chapter on the meditative concentration and way of training the mind on equalizing, exchanging stuff with others. These were taught by Buddha in order for generating wisdom. So there's one, this is okay to explain in that way. And the generosity and other perfection practices, all others, if you take it as covering all of other practices, generosity and so forth, purpose of wisdom have been taught, the generosity, morality, patience, diligence, and meditative concentration, they were taught by Buddha for the purpose of wisdom. There's nothing wrong in taking the meaning in that way as well. Why that is so is because generally, in order to generate wisdom, realizing emptiness, one needs to have the practice of the other by perfection of generosity and so forth. There's nothing definite to be preceded by those practices. To generate the wisdom, realizing emptiness, not only of the generosity and so forth, also to generate bodhicitta is not definitely certain. Even in the mind of the hearers and the solitary realizer, there's a special insight realizing emptiness, but they do not have the generosity and other perfection, and the bodhicitta they do not have. And the bodhisattva of the pure mental faculty, they would realize emptiness first and then generate bodhicitta later. But here, with regard to the line number 1, verse number 1, all these branches were taught by the able one for the purpose of wisdom. What this means is for bodhisattva to do practice. What that wisdom that is to practice by bodhisattva, that very perfection in that practice, to attain, not just for attain liberation, to eschewing the afflictive obscuration, but rather Bodhisattva's goal is others' welfare, and to attain that, attaining Buddhahood is the means for that, and to attain Buddhahood you need to eschew all the obscuration to omniscience together with their imprint, and to remove that obscuration omniscience you need to have the wisdom realizing emptiness. Merely with that realization of emptiness not become an antidote against the obscuration to omniscience. The realization of emptiness in the hearers and the solitary realizer become the antidote against afflict obscuration. Why that is so? Because not because there is a subtleness and grossness with emptiness in the Arya superior of the hearers and the solitary realizers and the bodhisattvas, the emptiness, and those of the tantric path. The emptiness is same. There's no difference of the subtlety and grossness, and there's no difference in regards to realizing of that same emptiness, but there is a difference of realizing emptiness through one variety of reasoning, and there is a way of realizing emptiness through countless varieties of reasoning. There is that difference, but anyway, in the superior person of the lower vehicles, why the wisdom realizing emptiness does not become antidote against that obscuration of omniscience, because they do not have the background support of the collection of merits. That is why their realization of emptiness cannot become antidote against obscuration to omniscience. So for that very difference being, and that very wisdom realizing emptiness, and the wisdom that is to realize, although there's no difference as regards these two, but rather that realizing emptiness to become ripened, to become antidote against the obscuration, is because of the two collections being together, as Chandakirti says in his verses. So also in the perfection vehicle system, the generosity and so forth, for perfection practices, if they do not have the presence of the wisdom realizing emptiness, they do not become the supramundane perfection, as Chandakirti says, like the collection, like the multitude of the blind are led by one person with the eye. So like that, perfection wisdom transforms the other five perfections is led. So all other five perfections through their force, the sixth perfection becomes the antidote against obscuration, omniscience. Therefore, all these branches, the branches here refers to the entire practice of the generosity and other of the five perfection. This becomes the explanation according to the thought of Gyuto Rinpoche and the disciples. So those wanting sufferings to be eliminated should generate wisdom. Second, third line of the verse number 1. Because of that reason, the other sentient beings, sufferings, all of them to be eliminated. If you want to want that. So here, sufferings, it doesn't refer to your suffering, it refers to other sentient beings' sufferings. So those wanting sufferings of other sentient beings to be eliminated, then you should have the omniscient pristine consciousness that is able to accomplish all sentient beings' welfare effortlessly and spontaneously, and that being indisputably the very would come about, that there was an effortless, spontaneous accomplishing. For that, you need to attain the jnana dharmakaya state, the pristine consciousness, reality body of the Buddha. So those wanting sufferings to be eliminated, so this, so a person wanting all sentient suffering to be eliminated should do practice of the wisdom perfection. Normally, with the word wisdom in English, here in Tibetan, it is aspect of the mind. Among the 81 secondary minds, it is among the 5 secondary minds with the definite object. So with the 5 definite objects, secondary minds, the one which fully discerns on the meanings that is in accordance with the Abhidhamma Samuchaya and of the Abhidhamma of the lower schools. They are the way of explaining, the defining wisdom is simple. So to discern perfectly the phenomena. So what one needs to ascertain, one very perfectly discern and to know very clearly such a mind is called wisdom. All doubts, to be free from the net, to be freed from the net of doubt is wisdom. So normally with the share part in the bell, know is to know, and rub is the supreme part of all the knowledge. And what is the supreme knowledge is the wisdom, where there's no occasion for doubt at all. So such a mind of knowing fully without doubt is called wisdom. Pra in Sanskrit. Pra is the supreme and the sublime, the best of the best. It is the ultimate in the best. That is the pra in Sanskrit. Pranya all together. So that is the also general wisdom. So here the wisdom, generally with wisdom, there is the wisdom realized, perceiving the conventional, and the wisdom perceiving the ultimate, and with the wisdom perceiving the conceptual is limitless. Normally we have the wisdom perceiving the conventional are the knowing the 5 fields of knowledge, and then the wisdom realizing emptiness is the wisdom examining the ultimate. So here wisdom does not refer to wisdom focused on the conventional things. Rather exclusively the wisdom refers to the wisdom realizing the ultimate. And so in this way, should generate wisdom. So this is the earlier outline. The need to generate wisdom, realizing suchness in the outline, page 49. So this corresponds to the verse number 1, the sufferings. In terms of the word, it can refer to obscuration and obscuration to the omniscient, which are the causes of the sufferings. What implicitly it shows in the superiors of the lower vehicles, the hearers and the solid realizers, they do need to realize the selflessness of phenomena. Instead of saying the omniscient, here it says wanting to liberation. So then the second main headline, the means of generating wisdom, realizing suchness. So this part has means of generating wisdom, realizing suchness, middle of page 49, text 2. So the realizing suchness, generally with regards to the phenomena, they are divided into the 2 truths. So the presentation of the true truths, that is the first part. And then the second, establishing that even for someone wanting to attain mere liberation, it is necessary to realize emptiness. Middle of page 49, the second part, that the grasping of true existence is the afflicted obscuration. And the third is the explaining extensively the reasoning, establishing emptiness. So this is in the Prasangika Madhyamika, how the emptiness is established. So this will come later, of which the first part, the presentation of the 2 truths, the presentation of the 2 truths, the presentation of the 2 truths, so this comes under the earlier subheading So first is the presentation of true truth. That also has two subparts, the actual presentation of the true truth, and the second is the forsaking argument that there's no need and ability for establishing emptiness, forsaking the argument that there's no need and ability for realizing emptiness. Then with the actual first part, this has three subpart divisions of the true truth, definitions, identifying the person, establishing that, divisions of the true truth, what are the definitions of the true truth, and what type of person establishes that. So these are being explained in these three subparts. So then we look into the verse number 2, deceptive and the ultimate. These are the true truth asserted, which is the divisions of the true truth. Buddha has, in the Sutra of Meeting of the Father and Son, and in many other sutras, has mentioned that all phenomena, reality is in the nature of truth. When they are presented within two truths. That apart from the true truth, there is no third truth. Never has Buddha said that. So the number is certain to be of true truth. This is again and again mentioned by Buddha in many sutras and discourses. Why that is so is because whatever phenomenon or thing it be, that phenomenon's the mode of existence and its retaining of its entity. The retaining of its entity, what it means is, in our Tibetan language, it is a very powerful word. But when we do study the collected topics at the beginning of logic talk, we very comfortably say the definition of phenomena is retaining one's entity. But these days, modern and especially in the modern science discussion talk, to retain one's entity. This is really whatever thing or phenomena it be, that it's that phenomenon's entity or nature to be established, to be existing in that, entity, that phenomenon's entity. It has very great meaning. So the way how it retains its entity, identity, when it appears, there's a way of retaining when it appears. So, and then there's a way how it retains its entity in its actuality. So, which we in dialectical language call the mode of existence, the mode of appearance. Mode of existence and mode of appearance do not match, and this so forth. This we dialectical in our mouth, we're very much used to this phrase, but in our mind, really, the mode of existence and the mode of appearance to be knowing, to have a clear image of that, I think would be difficult. The mode of existence, mode of appearance, being of one entity but of two different aspects. Therefore, with regard to phenomena, also with divisions of phenomena, there is deceptive truth and the ultimate truth. There are these two presented of the two truths. So this being are of separate arts, so that separate aspect, but of same entity, same nature. In the Samdhong Rinpoche Sutra, the two truths are, if they are of the same aspect, that there are many fallacies presented. If they are of the, then there are many fallacies. This is familiar to those who study the major texts of dialectics, and also there's not much point going into those complexities anyway with regards to the way how it retains its existence and entity. There's two. Therefore, the deceptive truth, these two are the two truths asserted. This is the division into the two truths. All phenomena divided into two truths. Verse number 2, line 1 and 2, page 117, text 2, text 1, sorry. What needs to be known. Therefore, Tathagata has understood the true truth. Therefore, the things to be known are true. So Buddha has seen only truth. Buddha has seen truth, and the phenomena to be known are, if collected, summarized. They are summarizable into true truth. So that is definite. They're definite in terms of number. If it is too many, it is unnecessary, redundant, unredundant. So unredundant means that there's not any more than that. And if it is too few, it does not become included. The numbering being definite, being not too many or not too less. So in that sense, with regards to the ultimate, and in Tibetan, there's made of two words, the sublime meaning. So, some meaning and the ultimate. So ultimate, the sublime is the ultimate. So deceptive word meaning deceptive word deceptive means that is not ultimate, and which is just grossly just covered and just so. That is the meaning of deceptive, something that is so. Yes, it is covered, but there's nothing sure what is inside. That is deceptive, and it also becomes one of the truths. To the valid awareness, perceiving the nominality, it becomes a truth, and the ultimate refers to among the direct perception, the best is the one which perceives the ultimate truth. Therefore, it is the ultimate truth. So into these are the two truths. A set of these, the first two, these two of the name of the true truth, and the division, the number of the truth being two truths. So deceptive, the why there's the word deceptive in some commentaries, the two truths. What to say, and then there's no difference of inferiority and superiority. Also in terms of the depth, and both are truth. One is higher truth, one is lesser truth. Not like that. So deceptive, ultimate. When the word are explained, the ultimate is not the object of perception by awareness. The dualistically perceived by awareness called deceptive, the next two lines of the verse 2. So this, in the Sanskrit language, it is exactly as it is in Tibetan. The wordings are same. The ultimate is not the object of perception by awareness. The awareness is deceptive. So this is what is mentioned. So because of that, the way this is explained, there have been many ways of explaining, and it has become a great point of debate among the Tibetan Buddhists for a long time. The discussion has continued, been going on. The ultimate truth is not the object of any awareness, of any mind. This is one way to understand. Whatever is the object of awareness, it is a deceptive. So this would mean that if it is a phenomenon, it necessarily is a deceptive. So many who have a view with them, in regards to the present verse, they have not understood the ultimate meaning of these verses. It is not what is not the meaning of these lines. So here, meaning with the Nagarjuna and the disciples, Aryadeva and so forth, according to their thoughts, the ultimate is not the object of the awareness. Awareness is called the deceptive is the definition of deceptive truth. That is what they have mentioned, and in this way, this is. So instead of the word cold in English, it should be asserted. The awareness is asserted. If you just go on the word meaning according to the wording of the verses, then with regards to a person and aggregate, devoid of inherency, means in accordance with the Prasangika Madhyamika. That is what I'm saying. Inherently existing from its own entity, truly existing by its own characteristics, existing by its own mode existence, and all of these in the Prasangika Madhyamika are synonyms. Those opinions below the Swatanka Madhyamika, to be not truly existent and to be not existent by our own characteristic, they make difference. But here with Prasangika Madhyamika systems explaining with the aggregates and the person not existing inherently or not existing by its own characteristic, or that is not inherently existing, that is the ultimate truth. So such ultimate truth, the ultimate, the sublime meaning. The example of that is the person and the aggregate not true, not inherently existent, or a person aggregate devoid of inherent existence. So this what all with the expectation everyone would keep in mind. I'm trying my best to have something in your mind to relate to. The aggregates and person are devoid of existence from its own entity. And that very negation of the existence by true existence, that is the non-affirming negative. Such is the ultimate truth. Such ultimate truth that direct valid awareness, which directly realizes it realizes by dualism towards it. That very direct awareness, valid awareness, don't appear dualistically, rather with the dualism subsided. So the ultimate, the aggregate and so forth, not existing inherently, so that lack of inherent existence, when it is perceived by the valid direct awareness, perceives it does not perceive with dualistic appearance. So that is the meaning of the dualistically perceived by awareness. The ultimate is not the object of perception by awareness. That is the meaning. That which is seen by the valid direct awareness does not perceive or to be understood or to be known. Not with the dualism, but the direct valid awareness without dualism sees that phenomenon. That is the ultimate truth. Likewise, person and aggregate, that not being devoid of inherent existence, that very basis, the person and phenomena are the example of the deceptive truth. So such a deceptive truth of the mind which perceives it directly to that direct valid awareness, they appear with dualism. With dualism means object and subject being separate, being seen. So that is the such that which sees it with the dualism. That is the ultimate. That is the deceptive truth. Such a thing is a deceptive truth, that which is to be perceived by the valid mind, seeing it with dualism of subject-object separate. So anyway, the aggregates and so forth, phenomena and aggregate person and aggregate, whatever is to be the basis of emptiness, that is the the deceptive truth, and on that there is a void of inherent existence. That is the ultimate truth. So that is the ultimate truth. So both the example and the definition are being identified here in these lines. The ultimate truth is that thing which is directly perceived, that awareness does not see it with dualism, that whereas the deceptive phenomena is that which perceives it, the direct valid awareness perceives it with dualistic, and the dualism which is deceptive, what that is covered, that is the dualism itself. So in this way, this is identifying of the example and the definition of the truth. That would be okay with that. Then the third is identifying the person, establishing that. With that, again, there are the two parts. Division in terms of person wanting to establish truth, and the second, explaining the difference of high and low awareness. That is to whichever person, with regard to truth, engages, whatever person who would try to strive at knowing the truth, then there are two ways of identifying the person as truth. One is in terms of the person wanting to establish the truth, and second, explaining the difference of high and low awareness, of which the first is the division in terms of person wanting to establish the truth. With regards to that, then we go into the verse number 3, line 1 and 2, identifying the person in terms of person. With that, two kinds of worldly ones are seen, practitioner and the ordinary. Verse number 3, line 1 and 2. With that, two kinds of worldly ones. Worldly ones is the person which is designated upon the aggregate that is called worldly ones. Such a person that is designated upon the aggregates, that is with regard to such a worldly one, if it is divided, there are two kinds seen. Practitioner and the ordinary. The practitioner, please look at the footnote 502. As the meditative concentration accompanied by inspiration conjoined, such a person is called practitioner, yogi, realizing emptiness, that has the wisdom reason from meditation of realizing emptiness. Such a person is called yogi or practitioner. The ordinary refers to here at this point, the ordinary, according to the commentaries, if we take the meaning of the ordinary, it is the person who doesn't have the wisdom reason from meditation or realizing or emptiness. It doesn't refer to all of them, but rather here ordinary refers to the materialist who assert the material existing, those who profess that phenomena exist truly. So in between we shall have a tea and bread. Offering mandala in gratitude of the teachings. Blessing and offering the tea. Audio, okay. Tomorrow at the teaching congregation, for the teaching to flourish forward and all sentient beings to be with happiness, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all sublime teachers to kindly live long and benevolent activities to flourish forward and throughout the world. There will be subsiding of the sickness, conflict, and so forth. The Tibet issue to prevail, etc. Is the aim, the purpose, the living Lisa who for the living Pigman Sok Kende In Pak Chung Hee Ho Gang Gang Ja Pak Sung Gang Hong Jang Pak Sung Hee Pak Hong Hee Pak Su Gong Pak Sung Kwan Pak Sung Suk Pak Sung Ho and the families for their welfare. At the congregation, a meal is offered. It's offered. The living Gelong Wasang Awang for the deceased Father Sonam Norbu. The living, the sick, the sister Tring Dolkar, Mother Sonam Cheki family for their welfare. A tea is offered and to each Sangha members, 20 rupees cash offering is offered. And living lateral Tenzin Top Gel has for the living Kama with children. Namdral Tenzin Gavon, Namdral Habodalma, Namdral Gasan Suma, Namdral Tenzin Hundub. Palo Sonam Samo, Palep Sonam Samo, Pale Nimal Hadu, Pale Samdin, and so Pale Trin Top Gale, and for the welfare and so a tea offering and the bread are offered. The deceased, Tung Chak Ching, and the living daughter Chak Ching for the welfare at the congregation. A full day's meal is offered. The living Gelong Tenzin Nung Tok for all the leftovers for the welfare tea and the 10 rupees cash offering to each Sangha member is offered. The deceased, two parents, Genjayam Palden, Mother Nima, the living Sedin Tenzin Lodin Tenzin Hundub, Gelvin Tunjo Trinjolka for the welfare. A tea is offered. Tringodup family has for the living Ladakh resident Father Tsering and Ngodu family and all the relatives for the welfare. Tea is offered. The living Losang has for the deceased Lakton Nobutsering, the living Tsering Lama Tenzin Balzum, Tenzin Menla, Tenzin Dandul, Tenzin Tenzin Matunju for the welfare. A tea is offered. The living South Korean based on Jung family has for the living based on Jung, Han Yong Sen, Bei Hung Wang, and so on. All sentient beings' welfare. A tea is offered. The above mentioned the benefactors, what is in their mind, their dharma aspiration to be achieved. Please direct your vast dedication and words of truth. Prayer requesting His Holiness the Dalai Lama to kindly live long. Prayer requesting His Eminence, something a little bit kind of long. The best is to just do it on the first day. But don't forget that. Yeah. From tomorrow, just come to me as you used to. That's the best. Yes. Doesn't matter the sound, I will do that.
These people, they stop like that. I know this.
Okay. Nyamdo Droasis, Bonja, Droa, Bonsiatim, Shade, Jordi, Jordi, Jare, Lord, Demo, Lord, offering mandala in requesting for the teachings. Amen. So in this way, with the establishing of the true truth, the person who wants to do the divisions in terms of the high and low awareness, in terms of person wanting to establish the true truth, and the second type, the division is in terms of the high and low awarenesses. Now there's two. That is the division of person establishing the true truth. Now as for that, with that, two kinds of worldly ones are seen. Worldly ones here means verse number 3 refers to the person that is designated upon the aggregates, practitioner and the ordinary. Here, practitioner is, as I mentioned earlier, one who has realized emptiness and has the combination of the both combining and special insight in the mind, and those who profess material existence as truly existent are the ordinary. So this is in terms of the person mainly within these two divisions. What to say? It is not a division of ruling out third possibility. For example, those who through learning and reflection on emptiness to be able to engage into that, there can be a person that can be considered as a practitioner, and the other who are not influenced by their mind by tenets, thus merely having an understanding of the can be ordinary, and those who have understanding of emptiness, just understanding of emptiness can be considered as the practitioner. Anyway, in regards to the truth, those who have interest want to know, and those who have inquisitiveness about that, they are inclusive into these two types of persons. So then the next is the next two lines. The ordinary worldly is folded by the practitioner worldly, and the practitioner too by awareness differences is folded by the higher and higher. Verse number 3, line 3 and 4, and so on. So with regards to the commenting on these lines, in the commentaries, there are many different ways of explaining, and it is quite a complex and controversial part here to mention briefly. The ordinary world is folded by the practitioner worldly. The main group in the worldly are the materialist, who profess that all phenomena exist truly. So those materialists, what is normally mentioned by materialists or those profess material existence of things within that, there are many tenet and groups that can be inclusive into that, but what is normally in terms of when we present a tenet, then in the exclusive Buddhist terminology, the materialist refers to what in other English translation called the realist. So there are the two tenets of the lower waking, the Sutantika Sutra followers, and the Vibhashika, the specific exponents. And then sometimes mind-only school is also counted as the materialist, so that is to be understood on the context of different occasions. But mainly all phenomena, those who do not accept as merely designated, but to be existing from their own entity, they all can be grouped as the materialist, the realist. So this is what here. And the practitioner too, those tend to profess material existence, and the ordinary people whose minds are not influenced by tenet, so they are, in terms of the practitioner's perspective and the way they assert things. So how the practitioner look at the object, the true truth, they will be faulted by the practitioner's perspective. And the practitioner too, by awareness differences, are faulted by the higher and higher. What that part means is, those who are counted as practitioner, even if that be the case, here what is now, with the practitioner, what is mentioned is, mainly it refers to those who have the meditative, those who have the mental realization of come the body and come expressions are together. But you can also here refer to practitioner as someone who has some understanding of the emptiness, and such practitioner, each of their assertion are folded by those higher and higher. So here, higher and higher refers to those, if you count practitioner as those above, those who have our understanding of emptiness, and above that, there's nothing in terms of awareness to be understood, but in terms of the path, the path of meditation to be faulting, the path of seeing faulting, the path of preparation. Here, the word fold is given the meaning as outshining. So in this way, higher and higher is outshone and folded by the one higher and higher. So how much one's mind enhances and progresses as regards to the emptiness, understanding, to get a clarity about it, and experience, when it enhances, the clarity and the experience enhances, then the lower in one's perspective and assertion would be faulted. So that is the meaning. Then here, with regards to the earlier, the main outline were on the third part, bottom of page 49, text number 2. The definition, division of the true truth, and their definition, and identifying the person wanting to establish that these have been completed. Then along by, there is the mention, forsaking the argument that there is no need and ability for realizing emptiness. So there's again two subparts to that, the actual forsaking argument and forsaking fallacy with that. With regards to that, then the practitioner are faulted by the one higher and higher. So that is the argument with regards to the ordinary's tenet, all phenomena being realized as not inherently existent, that knowledge of the yogi to be faulted, that would not be right, because there's no proof to establish things do not exist inherently. If things do not inherently exist, then there will be no reason, no meaning in doing the practice of the generosity of perfection, generosity, and so forth. What we normally, those who do not do the study on the major texts, roughly what you need to keep in your mind is, please, with regard to the highest tenet, the prasangika, consequentialist, and those below that tenet, all Buddhist tenets, schools of thought, as a contradiction, that there is the point of contradiction, that demarcation of contradiction is that all other tenet below the highest prasangika, madhyamika, and Buddhist tenets, with them, whatever phenomena it be, each of them from their entity, by their characteristics, or to be existing from their own side, to be existing from the characteristic. If there is no such way of existing, then the way to exist by their own entity, by their characteristic in the Tantrika Madhyamika, there is a slight difference within that tenet and within the mind only, and the Paravasika and the Tantrika, there is a slight difference, but collectively in common upon a thing, upon a phenomenon, if there's nothing existing, if there's nothing that exists from the phenomena or things part, then the very presentation of the cause and effect and dependent arising would not stand. So this is what they argue anyway. To be not existing from their own part and to be non-existent, there cannot be any difference between the two. If something exists from its own part, if something doesn't exist from its own part, it becomes that it doesn't exist at all. For example, what is merely labeled by the mind, and that is merely presented to the unfaulty, faultless mind, whatever you say, anyway, in our regular feelings, when we see mortally rope as a snake and to designate as such, that mortally rope does not function the function of a snake, even though there is a mind that designate as a snake, or there is no such awareness. But to a body of a snake, when it is designated as the labeled as a snake, for that snake to function as a snake, is not because of the difference of the mind that is designating, but it's because the difference between the basis of designation between the mortally rope and the snake. That is the very point of the way of thinking in the exclusive prasangika madhyamika's presentation of validity of the nominal existence, the very subtle of the dependent arising. Unless you do not know that, then you think that if thing doesn't exist inherently, then it doesn't exist at all. This is very strongly in people's mind, in the tenet proponent's mind. This cannot be held because the very presentation of dependent arising existence merely imputed, that is not known. If one doesn't understand that, then if something doesn't exist from its side, it doesn't exist at all. That is the thinking, and therefore the main debate that takes place upon is in regards to the cause and effect presentation between the doer action and the deed, and in terms of three time, past, present, future, and in terms of samsara and nirvana, for example. With regards to the fundamental wisdom, Bodhisattvacarya-avatara, from the analysis of the going and coming and many of the chapters, they are very much on this very debate. If something doesn't exist from its own side, then there can be possibility of the act of going and coming. There's no possibility of exhaustion of the affliction and so forth. Only things when they do not exist from their own side, that very presentation of merely name and exist and impurely, if you do that, then there is no existence at all. So this very debate is all same. In the praise to dependent arising by Gyuto Rinpoche, those who go against the Buddhist teachings, those who do not accept dependent arising, those people, when they refute emptiness. There's nothing to be shocked about it, but rather who accept the essence of your teaching and who accept dependent arising, but not able to bear the role of emptiness. For that I'm amazed. This is what, having accepted the dependent arising, due to dependent arising, to be not able to present things do not exist from the own side, and through that to be asserting still that things exist from its own part. This is what Rinpoche says. He is so shocked at the lower tenets within Buddhism. So all those below the Swatantrika, Madhyamika, they cannot present things if things does not exist from its own part. That being so, therefore, now what is being said here is all phenomena do not exist from their own side. This very awareness of the yogi practitioner, this is to the ordinary person's tenet, it would fall ordinary person's tenet. Then if things do not exist inherently, then there is no proof to establish non-inherent existence. There's no proof to establish if things do not exist inherently, then to attain Buddhahood as a result to be doing the practice of the perfection of generosity and other perfection would become meaningless. This is the argument the other side puts forth. Due to the next line, the two resolution here and there, you can only debate both or the materialist and the middle view. It is established by the metaphors asserted by both. What they present as things do not exist inherently. The example given are the dreams, illusion, and so forth. Therefore, that being so, therefore, things do not exist inherently. So the training on generosity and so forth would become meaningless. So that part, that very thrust would not apply. Or to attain result, to be doing generosity and so forth, even though things do not exist from their own side, but like an illusion through dependent arising, relativity, things do exist. Therefore, that there is no result would not be the fall that would stand. So this is what it means. So the metaphors asserted by both, because in unexamined manner for the purpose of the result, unexamined for the purpose of the result. What this part means is here what normally that comes in our regular example of the metaphors. In the Panchakaramati's commentary on the difficult point, the wording is instead of the word result, the word given is need. So the result is the Buddhahood, and need also can be the Buddhahood. The wisdom realizing non-inherent existence, also not with such, and the other perfection would not have the designation as perfection, because the absence of realizing non-inherent existence, the purpose of the result. The middle view practitioner, middle view proponent, and the materialist, what the very example or the metaphor or illusion, that is what to say. That very wisdom that realizes non-inherent existence, and the very reason that things do not inherently exist, but things do dependent arising merely exist by imputation, that there can be the functioning feasible. That is what is being mentioned. Anyway, to be totally non-existent, if do not inherent existent, if something exists, it has to exist absolutely, such as the functioning by the fire, cooking and burning. These are actually to be visibly visible, and such a each of the what is the context function. So if the water is moist and moisture and wet, and the fire being hot and burning and so forth, this is what the materialists say as the truly existent things about things. On that we do not have any debate. But if that is not asserted, then it becomes contradictory to what is visibly, that the fire does the function of the cooking, and the fire and burning, and the water does the function of the being wet and moist and so forth. So this would be directly contradictory to what is obvious. This is. Then the next is the worldly see things, verse number 5, and think of as perfectly established, not as illusion. So here the yogi and the worldly debate. So with regards to the yogi, the practitioner, as I mentioned earlier, it is someone who has understanding of emptiness, and the worldly who think. Worldly refers to those who think if something exists, it must exist inherently. The worldly see things and think of as perfectly established, not as illusions. So here the yogi and the worldly debate the middle view, and on the other side the materialist with regards to the fire and so forth, anything being valid as the hot and burning, and is normally exist and validly both see visibly and both accept to be so. But still, with the materialist, to be seen as an illusion devoid of true existence. This is what the materialist have understood, whereas the middle view proponent have understood things are like illusion devoid of inherent existence. Therefore, the very basis for the worldly and the yogi to be debating what is the basis of debate is, where it comes down to is like illusion, the word of inherent true existence. The way it exists is that it doesn't have to exist on its own part. This is the assertion of the middle view proponent, and the other, that if the illusion to be illusion, the word of inherent existence, and to be able to function as illusion, that it doesn't have to be the inherent existence. So this is where the two sides difference in the thinking comes about between the middle view proponent and that of the materialist proponent. And here at this point, the worldly see things, verse number 5, first line, that worldly refers exclusively to the materialist, to all those who accept existence of things from their own side. Then the second part of the outline is the forsaking the fallacy with that. With regards to the forsaking argument that there's no need and ability for realizing emptiness, bottom of the page 49, this argument has. This is presented, and the actual then the second part is forsaking that fallacy. This again has three subparts: refuting material proponents, Sotantika, and so forth. In general, refuting in particular the assertion which is the mind only tenet. And the third is forsaking the thrust at Madhyamaka, that there's no need for the ability of the path of realizing emptiness. So with regards to there are these the other the side of the argument. There is three parts. First are the Sotantrika Sutra followers. Second are the Chittamartha mind only. And then the first, second, the first at Madhyamika, that there's no need for, no the ability of the path, realizing emptiness. Then again, the first part has again two sub-parts, refuting fallacy by the direct, the obvious, refuting fallacy by scriptural citation. And then again, the first part, refuting the fallacy by direct, which if something doesn't exist inherently, then the form and the other five objects of the senses were to be obviously there would be contradictory. This is what the materialists bring about as the argument. This cannot be held as to how they think that things exist by their own side, and if things do not exist in that manner of retaining their entity, things, then the forms, sound, smell, and so forth, to be actually being visible and to be seen would be contradictory, which is the next verse, verse number 6. Form and so on, established by direct valid cognition, are verily by renown, not by valid cognition. So this is responding to the fallacy, apparent fallacy of the direct visible contradiction. The form that is not truly existent, the sound that is not inherently existent, not being inherently existent, therefore it cannot retain its entity if things do not, if these things do not retain their entity. But then we also see these things very obviously, then it would be contradictory. Then the response is, although form and so forth are directly seen, perceived, but they are perceived in the manner of the worldly renown. Or by a valid cognition of the nominality, seeing the conventional phenomena, the form and so forth, to be existing from their own side, or they are validly existent to the valid cognition, not through that. So are validly by renown, not by valid cognition. The mind which retains form and perceives form and so forth, upon that the form to be nominally existent, to be deceptively on the conventional level to be existent, merely existent by the renown of the worldly convention. So that is only the manner how they exist, but rather form and so forth to be existing to the direct valid cognition, and the manner the form exists. Ultimately, this is not what is seen. If form and so forth, which are perceived by the direct valid cognition, then how the form and so forth, if the direct valid cognition is valid, then that would mean ordinary people also realize or perceive suchness of the reality. This would be the contradiction in response. In the great the Samadhiraja Sutra, the great quotation lines are quoted that the eyes, ears, and so forth are not valid. Those who assert nominal existence of things as valid quote the same quotation from the Samadhi Sutra, and those who propose material. So here the renown, it means renown is just merely only convention, just existing by a nominal direct valid cognition, not by the ultimate valid cognition. Here valid cognition refers, it doesn't refer to the nominal valid cognition, but refers to the ultimate valid cognition. So that is not how it is. So the example is the next line. The women's bodies, such as which are unclean, to be renowned as clean. Verse number 6, line 3 and 4. These are renowned to be unclean and to be considered to be so. Likewise, deceptive phenomena are existing merely deceptively in the conventionality, merely labeled. They exist, and they exist as mere as they're known. So this, then the second is the defaulting by the scriptural Buddha's word, middle of the page 50, showing as of interpreted meaning the citation present compound phenomena as impermanent, so forth. Middle of the, then if form and so forth do not exist inherently, then this would contradict what Buddha has taught in the Sutra, verse number 7. For the worldly to enter suchness, the protecting God has shown things as impermanent. For the worldly to enter suchness, the protecting God has shown things. So what this means, Buddha has shown impermanence and so forth to those with lower vehicle. The person who prefers material existence to them, Buddha has shown things do exist from their own thought. If there are such sutras, there's still no contradiction because these were taught by Buddha for those trainees who cannot at that point be a proper vessel to show the suchness, for them to be gradually come to the understanding of suchness. Buddha at that time shown to them as impermanent. Here it doesn't mean only impermanent, but rather to those who profess material existence, then for them things do not exist from their own side. So with this part, the response to that, the half of the response is verse number 7. Protecting God has shown things in such reality they are not momentarily. In such reality they are not momentary. Verse number 7, line 2 to 3. All phenomena being impermanent, all compounded phenomena being impermanent, are momentary. This is what Buddha has taught. To the very face of the momentary things to be existing in heaven, this is not what Buddha has taught. This is not what the Buddha has taught. In such reality, in suchness, they are not momentary, because in suchness, all phenomena being of one, whether of one moment or whether of many moments, they do not exist either as one moment or many moments, as in the reasoning of disproving existence as one or many entities. So through that way, being shown. So for those who are of staunch dialecticians, those who are staunch dialecticians or debaters, so with regards to all four tenets, being whether they were taught by Buddha, whether they have been not taught by Buddha, there's a debate about that. So here it is on the basis that all four tenets assertion were taught by the Buddha. Then the third is forsaking the contradiction. This has the 5 subpart. Page 15, halfway down, forsaking of non-establishment, even in the conventional, forsaking the contradiction, invincibility of accumulating multitude of merits, the person consciousness, forsaking the contradiction of invincibility of joining to next life, and so on. So these are way the debate are presented as mentioned before. They are the same way of debating. If things do not exist from their side, then they do not exist even conventionally. This is what the materialist said. If things do not exist by their own side, then accumulating merit and purifying obscuration do not stand valid. Then if things do not exist, then by their own side, then there would not be transferring to next rebirth and so forth. If things do not exist from the own side, there will be no representation of samsara and the beyond nirvana and so forth, of which the first is the next line. It contradicts even in the conventional, forsaking the contradiction of non-established, even in the conventional. Even in conventional, the compounded phenomena being impermanent, what Buddha has taught, this would contradict to that advice. Why that is so is, that is a calm argument. What is in the world that is in the morning existent, that still exists in the evening, that being of the subtle momentariness, presentation, not of that kind, but there grows continuity, the gross continuity of things exist in this morning, still in the evening, and what is this year still to be existent next year. Such gross level of existence of things, continuity, if this is according to the worldly convention as mentioned earlier, which is valid to the worldly convention. If you consider that, if you take that, then in the conventional worldly convention, the continuity and so forth for long duration they remain. They do not disintegrate moment by moment. This is what is known to the world. The world's form and so forth. There's no such fallacy of such non-existence of the impermanence and so forth is very much valid to be established. So through the yogi's understanding, so the disintegrating moment by moment, when it is through the yogi that have understanding of emptiness with regards to the nominal validity of the form and so forth, that is considered to be valid, that very valid cognition, knowing the suchness would also understand the momentariness of things. So it doesn't contradict it. It does not contradict. If the question is put, this doesn't contradict at all. Then, with regards to the wordings of the text, it's difficult to relate and put into. Anyway, there's no difference at all. That very thing of impermanence, so forth, what that sees is what it perceives to be existing from the one side. So this is what the other side says. That therefore the impermanence, so forth, which is upon the basis of form and so forth, that very disintegrating by moment, if that is in by the valid awareness of nominality, then wouldn't that mean that the momentariness is seen? That's the question. That is not so. So that is the earlier, relative to the worldly suchness is seen verse 8, line 2 and 4. So relative to the worldly, according to the Bodhisattvacarya-avatara, instead of word 2, rather than relative. So instead of 2, word would be rather. Or over in English, or relative over to the worldly. The impermanence and so forth, saying that is saying suchness. There's no difference. That is what is explained, but wouldn't that contradict? Then the reason that it doesn't contradict, because relative to the worldly, what worldly considered to be clean, happiness and permanent, so forth, this is not what it is in reality. So it is just merely, but apart from that, what is renowned to the world, if it is valid, whatever is renowned to the world, if it were to be taken as a valid, then whatever is renowned to the world, for example, generally, with the worldly convention of what is considered clean and happiness and permanent and self, that is actually a misconception, such a thought, perceiving or misconceiving things about something that's unclean and suffering and so forth. That is not seeing the reality. If something is renowned to the world, that doesn't have to be established by the valid cognition of the nominality. As an example of that is in the worldly, what is renowned to the world, clean, happiness, permanent, and self. According to that measure or convention, they are labeled as such. But with others, it cannot be applicable to all. Otherwise, else the accident thinking as unclean about a woman would be faulted by the worldly. For a yogi meditating on ugliness of form, all sentient beings' body and the woman's body are seen as unclean. Thinking seen as unclean. So this would be faulted by such a practitioner's valid worldly awareness. So then the second is it is forsaking the invisibility, accumulating multitude of merit and persistent consciousness. This is similar to the earlier thinking. Next verse, there would be merit from illusion like victorious one, just as the material existence. So by making offerings to the illusion like victorious ones, so like that, whether it is true or not, reading through according to the thing, according to the material, there would be material being offered, there would be merit being accumulated, although in nominality, things are dependent arising like illusion, that being existent by in that manner to be making offerings to the victorious ones, that very merit gained from that to you. Those you who accept as truly existent, there's no difference with the merit being accumulated, whether true or not, that things are materially by the merit, there would be merit in ultimate truth, whether there is a truly existent Buddha or not, that very nominally existing conventionally Buddha, there's like an illusion, there is an illusion like merit that can be accumulated. Therefore, in nominality, both stands true. So the others are also same. Next is the forsaken contradiction of invincibility of joining to next life, verse number 9, line 3 and 4. If sentient beings like illusion, how would they be reborn after that? Then, if there is a illusion produced, sentient being, it cannot take rebirth. That is true. Therefore, sentient beings which are like illusion, how after that would be reborn, because nothing exists from its own side. They're like a magician, like an illusion produced by a magician. So when the illusion is withdrawn by the magician, there will be nothing thereafter. But here the assertion is not to be totally in all avenues to be seen as illusion. If the illusion, example illusion is an example of merely to show the lack of existence from their own part, but not illusion in illusion in all aspects. So this to you, to apply the same reasoning back to you. Next, as long as the factors are gathered, that long even illusion would occur. How could sentient beings be truly existent merely by long duration? Verse number 10. So these two parts you can put together. As long how could sentient beings truly be existent? So this very question of the illusion like sentient being, when it dies, how could it be reborn? That is the question. Like a magician which will produce the illusory horse and the elephant, when the illusion has disintegrated, charm has faded away, they become not appearing, there's no consciousness with those things. So as a response to that, verse number 10, as long as the factors are gathered, then long even illusion would occur. How could sentient beings truly exist merely by long duration? How does illusion happen? Is by the magicians charming a substance, and then the spectre's eyes are tainted, and as long as the factors for such illusions are there, then the illusion also would be appearing. Likewise, with those sentient beings that have died through ignorance and so forth, and the factors for their rebirth, these factors for their rebirth has not completed, has not turned away. Therefore, as long as these factors are not finished, and when they are gathered, these factors gather like illusion, there would have illusion appearing, the sentient beings too. through ignorance and so forth, through these factors. For as long as they are gathered, these factors of ignorance, the sentient beings would definitely be reborn, would take rebirth and so forth. So then the other side then says, oh, this is not the same. The question they say, the reason is, the reason why this does not apply that very taking rebirth is for a long time. From since beginning as rebirth, we have been coming in continuous rebirth after another time. And also we need to be we will be continuing being reborn. Therefore, if you think that is to be truly existent, if they think that is the basis for them asserting true existence, then the response is merely by duration. If you demarcate what exists truly or not, or truly exists or not, then with illusion there can be with long that there be sentient beings, and because the illusion being short that sentient beings would be deceptive, if you demarcate in that way, and that would be infeasible, that would not be right. How could sentient beings be truly existent merely by long duration? That is the reason you put for sentient beings being truly existent, that you say sentient beings been existent a long time. That doesn't make any difference. If there is a difference through that, then with the illusion and dream, there will be a difference of long and short. With the dreams and illusion, there will be a difference of the long and short duration. Therefore, with dreams and illusion, we also have to differentiate among them of true and deceptive. Even in a dream, one can have a dream where you dream of things over a long eon duration, and a dream of just one moment's dream. So then there will be such a debate. Mere by long duration, how could sentient beings be truly existent? Anyway, the response to that is how they can be reborn. The response is with the illusion. As long as the illusion factors are there, the illusion means, and likewise with sentient beings, as long as there is a factor for reborn, they will be reborn. So, and then for that, the other side gives a counter response. The rebirth is the long duration, whereas the illusion is short duration. If they bring that question. But if that is then the response is that doesn't prove that sentient beings are truly existent, because we cannot differentiate between things before long duration to true and not true. And you can you say that the dream is true and the illusion is not true, and within one dream there would be a difference over dreaming for eon and the dream for a moment. Then the next is the contradiction of insensibility or division of action into virtuous and negative things do not exist in heaven and so forth. Verse number 11. Since there is no mind with an illustrated person, killed and so on, so there would be no negativity to someone with an illustrated mind. There would be merit and negativities with the illusion, magicians, basis of transformation, the pebble and the twig and so forth transform into the illustrated horse and elephant. This illusion does not have mind, therefore there is no negative actions of killing. If you, with the sentient being that have life, because it has the illustrated mind, but the mind itself does not exist at all. Does not exist truly, so killing that illusion-like person, there will be no negativities and no benefit in helping that. Illustrated person being killed and so on, so there's no mind, therefore there's no negativities. Verse line number 2 of the verse 11, with regards to the negativities of the killing, act of killing, by confusing illusory person as a real person. If you, with the intent of killing, if you do killing, there's a negativity of through motive and through the action, but there's no completion part to that action. Therefore, there's no negativity of a complete action with regard to a human and so forth. With humans, which has illusory mind, merely labeled, and through that there will be merit in benefiting, and there will be negativity in harming that person. And again, the materialist, page 121, top part, text number 1, what they say is, while things at illusory sure are the same in that they do not inherently, how is that some arise, possess the mind, others without, that they are same, do not exist from the own side, do not exist truly, but there is the difference of being with mind and without mind. Why would there be that difference? This is what the other side, as a qualm, brings up the question. Because the illusory person does not truly exist, that doesn't exist inherently, does not have a mind. As being a person that is live does not inherently exist, how could it have mind? Because if there is a mind, it should exist inherently. This is what the other side thinks. So the response is verse number 12. Some things, mantra, chants, and so on, do not have the power. Illusory mind do not arise reason from various factors. That illusion too, whereas there's not anywhere a single factor able to generate all. Verse number 12. So the substance of illusion, the medicine, the charm, and so on. So when the magician produces illusion, there is a substance or which is charmed upon, and the mantra, charming mantra, and the things that would taint the spectator's eyes. There are many factors. So for there, through these don't have the power or the potential to produce mind. Therefore, the horse and elephant, which to the confused mind of the spectators, the magician produces, but they do not. But these produce illusory horse, elephant, do not have illusory mind. From various factors, that illusion too varies. Line 3rd and 4th, verse number 12. The reason from various factors, that illusion also is various. Therefore, that is reason from various factors, that illusion, there would arise confusion, that illusory appearances can be various. There is not anywhere a single factor able to generate all, because of various causes of various result. There will be various. There's not anywhere through one of factor all can be produced. So this part is with the where the fault of the argument is being calculated, I'm not able to understand well. But anyway, with regards to the meaning, according to the wording of the verse, the charm, mantra, charm, and so forth do not have the power to produce illusory mind. Therefore, it cannot produce being with mind. And because the reason things are produced from various factors, therefore the illusion also produced from that also is various kind. With one factor, single factor, to generate, to produce various result, a single factor able to generate all, that is nowhere to be, that is nowhere to be seen. Anyway, in the illusions factors, the continuity of the mind, to be able to produce that is not in the power of the magician's illusion. Therefore, the magician cannot produce a person with the mind. But that might be meaning here. Then the fifth is forsaking the contradiction of the ascertainment of samsara and the transcendence of division apart. Then the material, so the middle view proponent accept things to be devoid of inherency, that is considered what is called natural nirvana, natural sorrow transcendence through action and affliction, to be wandering in samsara, that is samsara, and through the action and afflictions, the arising as aging and death and so forth. So then here, if the ultimate is nirvana, samsara, the deceptive truth, verse number 13, through aging and death, this aggregate that has been produced by karma and afflictions, that is the samsara, and the ultimate truth about on that, if that is the natural samsara, natural nirvana, according to that, Buddha too would be samsara. So what would Bodhisattva practices do if Buddha with regards to the Buddha is upon the aggregate so forth, Buddha's body and so on. Buddha does have a body and so forth. Therefore, the question be that does Buddha also wander in samsara? If that is the case, then Bodhisattva to attain Buddhahood, to practice Bodhisattva practice, what would be the meaning and purpose with that? So this is the question by the other side, the qualm. In deceptive truth, what is the very continuity of the rebirth and death, if that is the samsara, then there would be the commonality of the common field for the samsara nirvana. Then Buddha also would be part of samsara. Then what is the point in the practice of the Bodhisattva? This is the reading of the commentary. And the response to that is verse number 14. If the continuity of factors do not cease, illusion too wouldn't occur. When the factors continue to cease, even in the conventional samsara wouldn't occur. If the factors for producing illusion do not cease, then the illusion would still be there. Likewise, what is produced by karma and afflictions, impure thought, the aggregates, the body and so forth, if their cause continuity has not ceased, then the body, the aggregate as well, would continue to exist. When the continuity discontinues, then the aspect of the illusion, even in conventionality, even in nominality, would not be there. So this is what is the meaning. So in this way, the natural nirvana and the nirvana or purity of the adventitious stains. There is difference between the two. What is called natural nirvana, the natural purity of the mind, this is not dependent on meditating on the path, but rather in the reality of the phenomena of the sentient mind. There is the potency, this is called natural nirvana, and the nirvana, which is the other, that is the which is the discontinuity of the birth and rebirth and so forth, and discontinuity of samsara. That emptiness, that is not mentioned. That is the natural nirvana. It is not considered as the nirvana in the sense of cessation of samsara. So that too is when the karma and affliction ceases, then it would also become into the nature of the nirvana, that is purified of the adventitious stain. Then the second part is refuting in particular the assertion of the mind only. So what so far have been covered is the refutation of the materialist in general, how they present their argument and the responses to them in all the root texts and the commentaries. Are very difficult. They are not very clearly defined or explained, but in approximate understanding, as mentioned earlier. Materialist is what the Pharisees they bring up as argument. What they say is, if things exist, things should exist inherently. If things do not exist inherently, they do not exist. Also, they are not able to differentiate between what is existent, what is inherently existent, what is not existent, what is not absolutely absolutely existent. So this is they are not able to differentiate. Therefore, they bring about this argument. So their assertion, what they think is something does not exist inherently, they things do not exist at all. And the response is that the things being existing conventionally does not mean they do exist inherently. The things are merely name imputed. They exist in that way. They do not exist inherently, but still the representation of the samsara, nirvana, and everything can be presented and physical. So this is the argument, and the response always are not directly, but rather the response is from another point, and the question is being put from another angle. Each of the side of the argument, the questioner and the answerer, the ultimate assertion, according to that, the question is being put and the response is being given. This is in all the debates among the tenure. This is what takes place. So today we'll stop here. In brief, be kind enough to put into practice whatever has been explained. Your dedication prayer. Offering mandala in gratitude of the teachings.
Jaya